You're watching World News from Indonesia's pioneer news channel, Metro TV. I'm Kezia Alexa, and here's the highlights today. Zimbabwe strongman Robert Mugabe Friday turned 90 years old. Despite his age, the president showed remarkable health. He also had no plan for retirement. Opponents of Mugabe, however, said the president stayed in office to avoid answering to Zimbabwe people of his wrongdoings. In hospitals, most people only know what they see, from mere beds to sophisticated equipment. But little does people realize that hospitals often have their own little workshops where machinists create sometimes innovative gadgets to help doctors treat patients back to health. The Indonesian government has warned the Corby family against pressing for permission for an exclusive interview between on-parole Chappelle Corby and Channel 7 Australia. Channel 7 reported Friday morning that sister Mercedes and her husband Wayan were in Jakarta a day before to ask the Justice Ministry to allow Chappelle be interviewed. Mercedes said Chappelle promised to hold an open press conference first before conducting the exclusive interview in private. However, Justice Minister Amir Shamsuddin said Friday the family should realize that news on Chappelle had already reached feverish level that starts to cause public concerns. Shamsuddin reminded Corby's family against pushing for the interview, which he said may cause the Bali Parole Board to view that Chappelle broke her parole terms and sent her back to jail. 8 fire trucks were sent to hose down 4 warehouses and factories in Padang, West Sumatra, which caught fire due to what authorities suspect is as faulty wiring. Flames that engulfed the 4 warehouses in a packed residential area were filled with basic staples such as household goods and cooking oil. Dozens of authorities were sent into the scene, and at least a dozen firefighters were finally able to control the situation on Friday early morning hours. No casualties were reported. An investigation into the cause is ongoing. Haze problems due to the slash and burning activities in North Sumatra continue to affect health and transportation in the region. Authorities at the Kuala Namu International Airport in Deli Serdang, North Sumatra, are forced to delay several flights due to low visibility. Local weather office said the number of hotspots have increased in the past week, worsening the haze situation. Residents in Kota Baru, Kelok 9, and Haru Sumatra also reported breathing problems due to the heavy smoke. And now let's take a look at what the weather will be like across the world today. Jakarta will be rainy, while Singapore and London will be sunny. Tokyo and Beijing will have a dry but cloudy day. A suspected insurgent was killed in a shootout with police in Yala's Raman district on Friday. Police encircled the house where the suspect of multiple insurgent attacks was hiding early Friday morning. The man refused to surrender and opened fire at the security force before he was shot and killed while trying to flee the house. After the shooting, police seized his pistol and ammunition into the house for establishing leads to his alleged crimes. Meanwhile, although anti-government protests continued in Bangkok outside various government buildings, angry farmers called off their threat to blockade Thailand's main airport with tractors, but they vowed to stage another protest next week if the promise to pay by the government is broken. Robert Mugabe, Africa's oldest leader and Zimbabwe's ruler since independence, turned 90 on Friday, but high-profile celebrations risk being overshadowed by rumors of ill health and a raging succession battle.
1979 and Rhodesia was at a tipping point as Ian Smith's white minority government battled to stay in power after nearly 15 years of intermittent civil war. A year later, Zimbabwe was born with Robert Mugabe at its head.
He appeals to the liberation era. He's also appeals to people who feel empowered or who feel that he has done a lot in terms of the land redistribution post-2000, and also that he's challenging the Western model. His challenge to the UK, to the EU, to the United States does have a lot of resonance for many, not just Zimbabweans, but for many Africans.
The young Mugabe had spent 10 years in prison for subversion in the 1960s. An avowed Marxist, he became a symbol of African independence from European colonial powers. His ZANU party swept to power in Zimbabwe's first free elections in 1980. But over more than 30 years, the image of Mugabe has shifted from freedom fighter to that of dictator. He and his party stand accused of trampling on press and judicial freedom, as well as human rights abuses. Power cuts, economic instability and food shortages become a regular feature of life. On the international stage, Mugabe is alienated, the EU imposing sanctions in 2002, as well as a visa ban on Mugabe and many of his entourage. The 2008 elections saw Mugabe lose in the first round to opposition candidate Morgan Tsvangirai. But when his rival withdraws, citing violence against his supporters, Mugabe is sworn in. Africa's oldest leader began a new 5-year term in August 2013 after again winning disputed elections, and has not ruled out running again, by which time he'll be 94.
A powerful explosion ripped through a Syrian border post near a refugee camp on the border with Turkey, setting cars ablaze and killing at least 5 people. Syrian opposition and Turkish state media said the Thursday blast, believed to have been caused by a car bomb, tore through the Bab al-Salama border crossing, wounding a large number of people who were taken to hospitals in the Turkish town of Kilis across the border. Amateur video posted online on Thursday showed people running away from a burning car. Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych and 3 main opposition leaders signed a deal Friday to end a 3-month crisis over the ex-Soviet country's political future. The pact, paving for the way for early elections and a shift in political power toward parliament, was signed in the Blue Hall of the presidential palace in the presence of 3 EU envoys. At least 70 protesters were killed on Thursday and over 500 were wounded, according to the medical coordination for the protesters. But on a trip to Baghdad, Iraq on Thursday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov blamed the West for the ongoing chaos in Ukraine, saying that the opposition have been unwilling to negotiate because of sanctions imposed by the U.S.
I don't see why people cannot reiterate this now.
Coming up in world news, a study has proven that manta rays are worth more alive than dead. The Milan Fashion Week showcases the Prada collection.